Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and we are going to go through the best heroes for Vainglory Ranked 5v5 today. With the update 3.1, Ranked being released, I thought it's best to get this out sooner rather than later, so I've done a lot of early research, asking a lot of the pro players what they play, looking at their VG pros, trying to find out exactly what they're playing right now. This might change, but this is my best guess. The reason I'm releasing now is because tomorrow I'm going to China, and secondly, Ranked 5v5 is really important, and you guys want to get off on the best foot. So this is the best collection of heroes for each role that I can think of. And we're going to start in the mid lane. Now, KESTREL can actually flex between the side lanes and the mid lanes. Primarily played CP in the mid lane, and that build path is not set in stone. I've seen some people go Spellfire first, for instance. Remember, Spellfire damage actually procs your active camo. That's why it's a really important item on KESTREL. But I've also seen her in the side lanes, Dienzio build, which is the Sorrow Blade, the breaking point into the Bonesaw. You guys can play that. She can also be played very easily CP in the side lane too. Now moving on to Celeste. She only got better in the last update. Celeste is pretty much queen right now. Really, really good space to be in. Spellfire, again, is an item that you should be considering. Very standard set item build path for Celeste. That can be mixed up. I actually quite like going Dragon's Eye or Shatterglass first, then into Clockwork, and then leaving Eve of Harvest till later if I need it. Don't feel like it needs to be first all the time, but I've just put it in that order because that's the way I already had it, and I'm a little bit lazy. Varia, she didn't receive any changes either. She's still a great CP mage in the mid lane. Her weapon power build path has been dead for quite some time now, but I mean, if you really want to play her weapon power, feel free to try it out. But realistically, she is an alternating current based CP mage in the side lane, and like you said, we've had that discussion between Dragon's Eye and Shatterglass. A lot of the North American pros really favour Dragon's Eye, and we're seeing it creep into Europe as well, so people are basically realising that maybe fights are going long enough to make Dragon's Eye worth it, so that's maybe why you're seeing still a bit of Dragon's Eye in terms of prioritisation, but Shatterglass is definitely viable if you need that burst damage. And finally, something that's been creeping in, we saw Chuck play it to beat Tribe in the VIS tournament, Scarf. Scarf's been this cute little dragon who's slowly made his way into the meta through nerfs to other heroes and buffs to himself. He's a very, very good Dragon's Eye build. He's obviously got a pretty good build path there, but you can include Spellfire as well for more damage over time. Very good at shredding turrets too. The one good thing about Scarf is he's a great objective taker, and he can practically kill turrets in a matter of seconds, so Scarf is definitely someone that you should be considering playing in the mid lane. Having a look at the jungle now, and we're going to start off with KRUL. Even though he got nerfed, I thought this would be a bit more of a nerf than it actually ended up being for KRUL. It seems like people still favour him. People still playing him with that burst-orientated build with the tension bow. Can be played with the poison shift breaking point build too. He just provides too much utility, I think, in kind of what he does in terms of shutting down other carries. Also, what his ultimate provides in terms of an engagement tool. Just feel like you can't ignore KRUL. He's still really solid right now, and it's going to take a hell of a lot of nerfs, maybe nerfs to his weakness stacks to really see him drop out of the meta. The interesting addition here is something that I've been playing a little bit and has definitely been creeping onto the pro players. It's been GRUMPJAW. And it's a specific build. It's a very specific build that we've seen with GRUMPJAW. Now, you can play him weapon power. That's the build above the line. But what we've really been seeing is a kind of a hybrid on-hit GRUMPJAW. Tension bow into Aftershock, then into a full tank-orientated build. And if you really want to build something at the end, you can consider a Broken Myth just to get the extra CP damage down. But that build, I would recommend that over the weapon power build any day of the week. It's a heavy burst damage, and it's really, really good. Just like the nerfs to KRUL, KOSHKA really didn't get that big of a nerf. It was 10 base damage and a slight energy increase cost. I still think KOSHKA's in a really good spot. Definitely not broken at this point in time. She's just good. Just a good carry in the jungle. Aftershock based build, Aftershock Broken Myth into whatever else you want. But Aftershock Broken Myth generally tends to be the standard for a lot of the pro players anyway. But you can consider something more aggressive, and I've just listed off a couple of things there that might suit your fancy. Again, Spellfire is something that you can consider on KOSHKA if you're doing well and you need that Spellfire Mortal Wounds passive. And we all thought Fortress maybe would be getting nerfed into a position where he wasn't super strong, but it looks like his win rate and his pick rate is still very, very good. Fortress in the jungle generally played two styles. You can play him Stormcrown into Aftershock, and I was talking to I'm the Doom, and he said that he's playing him with Tension Bow Aftershock Clockwork, which I thought was a really interesting build, a little bit like GRUMPJAW, something that you could potentially consider to try out. But the Stormcrown into Aftershock is a bit more of a standard build, and often, obviously, you use that Stormguard banner that you get in the early game to sort of push through to that. So if you've seen these kind of builds before, or these videos before, you'll know that I do 8 heroes in the side lanes, because realistically there's not that kind of defined meta in top and bot right now. We're kind of getting there, but it's definitely not defined at this point in time. Now, Vox has moved from the mid lane into the side lane. I think a lot of people have realized that his kit is just very good for dealing with a lot of the popular side lane heroes right now, and you can play him weapon power. A lot of what I've been seeing is the standard Vox weapon power builds, tension bow coming back in because the amount of squishy mages that we're seeing across the map, and you can still play him CP2. Did get that fixed to his CP build path, meaning that he gets the CP damage when he uses his Sonic Zoom. Going to look at Rona now. She also received a small nerf, but like I said, I don't think it was significant enough to really draw back how good Rona is as a pusher in the side lane. Her ultimate nerf really didn't affect what Rona was good at. Rona was just really good at 1v1s, and the ultimate really didn't come into play that often, especially when you're trying to get lane dominance. You can still play her effectively in a team fight. You just obviously, like we've seen, have a slight reduction in the cooldown, or slight increase in the cooldown to her ultimate, so you do have to be a bit more careful and selective when you use it, but regardless, Rona is still in a great position. As is this girl, Gwen. A lot of people thought that she would be killed off with the nerf to her heroic perk and the nerf to tension bow. Hasn't been the case, but definitely you're starting to see some different builds creep out for her. People have been trying to play her with a poison shiv first, but I just think you're kind of playing away from what Gwen is supposed to do. Even with her heroic perk nerf and the tension bow nerf, she's still a burst orientated hero. I've seen a Serpent's Mask into Breaking Point into Double Turret's Monocle build, which I think actually genuinely could work, so feel free to try that out, but tension bow still seems like a very solid item for Gwen. Bit more of a black sheep in the side lane, JOULE. You don't see her too often in pro play, but she's still a split push monster, and the Tyrant Monocle nerf in the last update indirectly nerfed JOULE. She didn't actually have anything specifically to herself that got nerfed, but the Tyrant's Monocle nerf definitely hurt her. I have been seeing more CP JOULE in the side lane now as well. Very hard to trade into a CP JOULE that can hit her Thunderstrike, so often it might be good for you to consider that as a potential build path, and you can play around with the CP items with JOULE, but she's still very strong as a split pusher, and the CP build path that I've been seeing coming out in the side lane is a nuisance to deal with as well. So REZA, he was in here last time. REZA is going to stay here this time too. A lot of people playing REZA in the side lane as opposed to the jungle right now. It eliminates the need for the Storm Crown, and you can go a bit more aggressive. The build that I've seen Palmatoro, one of the EU players, play a lot has been Aftershock into Dragon's Eye into Broken Myth, and then stopping there, going double tank items. But you definitely can go a bit more aggressive by adding in a Clockwork at the end as well. Really depends on how you feel the fights are going to go. Again, another person that believes the Dragon's Eye is, he's surviving long enough to make it work. BLACKFEATHER is going to remain here. He has got a very good CP and weapon power build path that have been largely unaffected by some of the changes over the last updates, and that's going to mean that BLACKFEATHER still retains his position as a split pushing side laner. He can go a bit more aggressive, and he can go into sort of a long range poke style with that CP build path, but he's still a very, very good hero that can be played quite efficiently in the side lane, so something for you guys to consider if you need to play someone who's very good at diving squishies in the back line, can group up with the team and team fight, but has a great strong split push presence too. This guy, I feel, is probably one of the best laners on this update. He had a really good win rate previously. Now, his weapon power build path is still good, but the real killer is his CP build path. A lot of North American pros, I've seen old school play this specifically, going into the Dragon's Eye first, then going for a crystal bit to unlock your heroic perk, and then you're heading into very heavy damage output because it's very easy to kite with CP Idris, and you can build stacks really nicely. So Dragon's Eye is a pretty good item on him. Again, he's really strong right now, especially CP, so I think probably one of the best laners on this particular update. A bit of a curveball here this time. We're going to bring in Taka. This is something that I've seen Gabe Vizzle play a lot in the side lane. I really don't like Taka, but this build seems to be working out quite well. Stormcrown Aftershock, full tank. I've included the Broken Myth and the Clockwork there if you wanted to go maybe a bit more aggressive, but this is the build that Gabe Vizzle has been running, which is basically going Stormcrown Aftershock for a lot of cooldown reduction, a bit of health, and a lot of objective focus too, and then full tank, and all you do is essentially use that cooldown reduction and your tankiness to consistently proc Aftershock as your main damage source, and Aftershock being such a good item right now is perfectly happy to make that work. We're going to move on to captains, and honestly, pretty much every captain in the game feels viable in some way, shape, or form, but I had to pick 4. Going to start with Fortress. The nerfs just haven't affected Fortress, I think, in the way that they potentially should have done. And I think it's realistically his ability and his heroic perk, his ability to speed up and focus down targets on such a large map, and that also helps in ganking situations too. Fortress is just so useful and so easy to snowball a game with, and I think he's just in a really strong space right now. So Fortress is both good in captain and in jungle roles. I think Lyra, not 100% pick ban, but I definitely think Lyra is going to make her way back into the meta. Her healing has been increased by 1%, which I kind of worked out didn't seem like a lot, but it realistically in-game does feel like quite a decent increase to her healing capabilities. So I definitely think Lyra is back on the cards as one of the top-tier captains. Like I said, don't think she's going to be 100% pick ban, but I definitely think she's super strong. And it's very good to help to roam to several lanes and provide sustain for them. One Lyra sigil can help turn an awful lane around just by giving them that heal, so very important. ARDAN got a bit of a sort of a captain buff on the last update, so he's super good still, and I really like playing ARDAN in general, so he's going to be included for sure. And you notice with the captain items, they're all the same. That's because really captain items should be up to you to decide what to build. I've been playing more and more, and I've been feeling more and more that Fountain should be a priority as an item in most cases. I just feel like it's far too useful as an item to get away with not having it first or second, but I have been playing with things like Crucible first in the right situation, and also been playing around with things like early scout cams as well, things like the scout cam upgrades. CHURNWALKER coming in, he got a massive buff in the last update. CHURNWALKER is definitely very strong, especially in competitive. It is hard to make work, but I just think CHURNWALKER's in a great place right now, and if you can play him and you're good at him, you're going to have a really good time as a captain. There are lots of other captains that I wanted to mention. I think Grace is going to be good this update because she indirectly got a buff to her captain build. Lance is obviously going to be good, but the problem with Lance is he's very hard to play. So if I tell you to go and play Lance and you're not good at Lance, then you're not going to get as much success with him unless you've practiced him a lot. And I personally play a lot of him because I feel like I'm good with Lance, but he's one of those heroes that requires a lot of practice to make work. Lots of good heroes in this update. I really struggled to pick top 4 for each lane, but we got there. Got a lot of help from people like Ina Doom and looking at the VG pros of pros as well, so thank you all of the pro players who have been playing to help me populate this list, and I will see you next time, which might be next week when I'm back from China.